So I try to take a little bit of time off each month. I read a book a while ago. I've actually read a number of books on this. The idea of taking a good extended amount of time off at least once per year to reset, to think, to rest. And that's what I'm doing through the month of May. And so I wanted to share with you one of the things that I'm doing through the month of May is reading. I want to catch up on my reading. I'm a little bit behind on where I'd like to be. I've read 15 books so far in 2022, but I'm a little behind where I'd like to be. And so I'm going to do a little bit of reading over the next few weeks, try and catch up and get ahead. And I want to share with you some of the books that I'm reading because I think you may be interested in some of these as well. And these aren't all to do with Greek, some are, and I'll talk about those. But of course, I read quite broadly and quite widely. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know this because, well, you probably would have seen me talking about books on economics and so on. This is probably the most broad reading list I've ever read, I've ever had in 1 month. But I really am looking forward to reading these books, particularly as I was writing them down and thinking about them a little more. I am really looking forward to this month off. Hi, I'm Daryl Burling from Biblical Mastery Academy, and I'm here to help people like you engage your minds and hearts in the Word of God richly through the knowledge of the original languages so that you experience transformation and joy in Christ. And that's really what I'm trying to do inside the Biblical Mastery membership and Biblical Mastery Academy. So I want to share with you the books that I'm reading. We're going to start with this one, Habits of the Mind by James Sire. Now, this is really about the intellectual life as a calling. And I know this is not something that everybody is into. And, you know, to be fair, when I first came across this book, the first time I read this book, I was not prepared to think of myself as an intellectual at all. And I still really don't think of myself as an intellectual. I mean, I have a doctorate, and that's where I came across this book for the first time. And I love reading. I love thinking. I really enjoy writing, although it's a hard process. But one of the things I'm coming to realize more and more, particularly living here in New Zealand and where I live in New Zealand, it is actually, there's no university in the town I live in, and it is kind of a lonely thing. And so I want to read this book to help refresh my own soul and re-engage my own desires, if you like, to continue to serve you as well as I can. And so this book, Habits of the Mind, is really intended to do that for me, to help me refresh myself as I think through my role, how I serve you, and how I'm a blessing to people just like you. I really do count it a privilege to do what I'm doing. It's the best ministry I could have ever, you know, it's better than any ministry I could have come up with. It's really one that the Lord has gifted me with, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to serve you. So, but I'm really interested in rereading this. I read this again for the first time back in 2015. So I'm rereading it now, and I'm looking forward to rereading it and refreshing myself. And one of the things I love about this book, from the first time I read it is a wholehearted book. I mean, it's talking about the habits of the mind, but he's got a really strong moral thread that goes through that, which really intersects well with my understanding of the heart and how the heart has, and the mind intersects well with the emotions. And so our knowledge is not purely intellectual, but it is an emotional knowledge as well, and it's a wholehearted knowledge, and that therefore leads into obedience. And that's really my desire as well, is to become more like Christ. So I'm looking forward to reading Habits of the Heart. And if you would like to engage in a habit, then go ahead and make a habit of hitting the like button for me. That'll be a real blessing and to help this video be found by more people. The second book I'm looking forward to reading is Constantine Campbell's Basics of Verbal Aspect in Biblical Greek. Now, again, I've read this book before. This is one of those books inside the Master New Testament Greek and now Biblical Mastery Academy community membership that we read every couple of years. Because one of the things that a lot of people really struggle with in Greek is, how do you understand verbal aspect? And this is just a really good book for really getting the basics of verbal aspect down, understanding the distinction between pragmatics and system and semantics, understanding things like remoteness and proximity and verbs and how these kind of engage. This is just a well-written and very clear book. And if you're interested in more on this, I actually did a review of this book and an overview of verbal aspect in total a couple of years ago, and you'll find a link to that just up here as well. So go ahead and check that out. But I'm rereading this because during the month of May, inside the Reading Academy, we are reading this book again. If you're interested in join us for that, go to bma.to/starterpack and download your starter pack, and you'll find on the website while you're there, go look for the membership, the community membership, and if you're interested, join us and read through this book with us. We read a book every month inside the community membership. This month is this book, next month it's going to be a book on hermeneutics, and there's others that we've got up our sleeves as well. And in fact, that book, the James Sire book, The Habits of the Mind, we're probably going to read later on this year as well. So if you want to read that with us, then go pick up a copy of that and join the community as well. So that's the second book I'm going to read, is The Basics of Verbal Aspect, which is a fantastic intro book just to verbal aspect. If you're learning Greek for the first time, don't worry about this book. But if you want to, if you're already learning Greek and you want to go deep and you want to understand verbal aspect, this is a great book to read. And I'll leave a link to this and all the other books in the description below, so you can get a copy of them there. The third book I'm going to read this month is a little different. This is not a book on Greek nor on the intellect. This is a book on economics. This is Religion and the Rise of Capitalism. And this book, one of the things about our current worldview that we have, and the worldview we've inherited over the last several hundred years, is that it's rooted richly in the Christian worldview. And this book explains how capitalism arises out of Christianity, and more specifically, it arises out of a Christianity that really stems from the 1600s, the late 1500s, early 1600s, more really than even the earlier strict Calvinism that marks the Reformation period. So I'm interested in reading this book from a theological point of view, and I'm also very interested in reading this book from both a worldview and an economic point of view as well, because again, I'm interested in this kind of field, and this is a book I stumbled across. Again, it's a kind of a long book. I think this is about 700 pages, so this isn't going to be a 5-minute read, but I'm looking forward to reading this one as well. And so that is Religion and the Rise of Capitalism. The next book that I'm interested in reading is The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Truman. This book was released just a couple of years ago, and it really tries to recount how did we get to the worldview that we have today, where really the LGBTQ whole program and all that sort of thing, how does that find traction today? What's the worldview behind it? How did that worldview come about? And so what this is tracking is things like, how did we go from the individual being responsible to society being responsible for the way I as an individual react? So it tracks the distinctions, for instance, between Augustine's Confessions and Rousseau's Confessions, and then explains how Rousseau really set the foundation for the modern self and the psychological man. Again, he's using here 3 modern-ish ethicists to think through this as thinking partners. And I've read a little bit of this book so far. It's really interesting. It's kind of an academic book, but it is a worthwhile read. So if you're interested in something a little bit more challenging, this is about 350, 400, might be 400-ish pages, but so far very, very good, and I recommend this one as well. That's The Rise and Triumph of the Modern Self by Truman. The next one I'm going to read is Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business by Wickman. Now, this book is a book I've read before again. I seem to be doing a bit of rereading this year. But I'm reading this book again because we've now got, inside Biblical Mastery Academy, there's a few people working with me now. And one of the things I'm trying to do is, now that I've got people working with me and there's employees, so to speak, I'm trying to work out how do we do this with excellence. One of my missions is to be able to serve you as well as I can for as long as I can. And so reading books like this, and particularly reading it as a team, is a helpful way for us to all get on the same page so that we can sort of think through how do we organize ourselves as a unit together so that we can serve you the best we can. So this is a great book that provides really an operating system for small business to make sure that it enhances our efficiency, we find the right people for the right job, and we are aiming for the right things and achieve success with them. So that's really what this book is about. And again, I'm looking forward to rereading this book through the month of May 2022 as well. And if you're interested in that, read through it with me, and maybe we can talk about it inside the community membership when I get back. Finally, the last thing I try to do is every year I actually try to read a fiction series. And normally it's been kind of some sort of fantasy series. And last year I was going to read this series, but I didn't get to it. So I'm going to do it this year. And this is The Lord of the Rings. Okay, now I've read The Lord of the Rings before. It was a long time ago, but I've just finished reading The Hobbit, because that's, of course, you've got to read The Hobbit before you read The Lord of the Rings. And so this year I'm going to read through The Lord of the Rings just to give myself something a little bit different and to refresh myself as well. Last year I was going to read this, like I mentioned, but I got sidetracked reading the Harry Potter series again, and I also read Raymond Feast's Magician series, 2-book series, which is one of my teenage favorites, if you like, as well. So this year, Lord of the Rings, and I'm looking forward to reading through all of that and catching up on some of the things that were missed out on in the movies, such as, you know, the Barrow Downs, Tom Bombadil, and things like that. So I'm looking forward to reading through some of those as well. Now, I'd like to ask you, if you're watching this far and you're interested in these, you know, I would ask you to encourage me to keep me accountable. In other words, ask me at the end of this month, how did I get on with these books? Which one did I enjoy the most? Ask me that. I'd love to answer you, because that's going to keep me accountable. And what do you think that I would like? Is there any books that you're reading right now that you think I would be interested in? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and I look forward to hearing from you there. If you're doing what I'm also doing during this month, and that's reading some more of the New Testament in Greek, and you're interested in doing that, then feel free to go to bma.to/starterpack, download our starter pack, and get into Greek. It's the best way to sort of just get a handle on it and see what's required, and we'll give you some free stuff as well. And if you are reading through Greek, keep taking small, consistent steps, even through the month of May, even while I'm away. These videos will continue. I've recorded a bunch of videos ahead of time, so you won't miss out on anything. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Otherwise, again, keep taking small, consistent steps toward mastery. See you then.